Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. I know what you're saying. Those that have been following us for the last three seasons, we're getting ready to go into this is season 4. They go, Andre, what happened to your beard? Long story short, about 3 weeks ago, I had triple spinal fusion surgery. So the tricked out part was this surgery also required me to cut my beard. And if you saw some of the episodes, you saw this, what you might call Fu Manchu. I call it Wolverine type stuff. But my daughter said, Dad, cut it all off, let it grow back, start all over again. So I said, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start all over again, start fresh, let it grow. But I also want to make sure as I let people know I'm starting over fresh, the show must go on. And the only way to make the show go on with a fresh start, fresh new beard coming in, is to have a guest who understands what it is to start fresh and to take those skills and those traits and keep moving them forward and play it into the community. Think about this. What would it be like to go to a school to be an first African American in a sport that you go, are you serious? And to become a doctor and to have twins, a husband who is valedictorian. I would say cum laude, but who knows what we're going to find out about this young lady and her journey and her family. And more importantly, California, not just any part of California, but Oakland, California. Like to welcome to the show the one, the only, the author, the doctor herself, Trina Wiggins. Welcome to the show, Trina.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Man, we was talking off camera during our pre-interview to set up. Man, your bio is clearly unbelievable. Let's start out with telling the viewers a little bit about who you are before we tell them that you are Dr. Trina Wiggins.
Sure. So, yes, I was born in San Francisco, raised in Oakland, and then I attended Stanford University. And while at Stanford, I was on the gymnastics team. I was, in fact, the first African American gymnast to compete for Stanford back in 1978. 1980, fast forward, I had a great moment. I broke the school record in vaulting in 1980, but then shortly thereafter, I sustained a career-ending knee injury. And I had to make the decision. Was I going to try to rehab and continue with gymnastics, or was I going to move forward to go to medical school? So I made the decision to put all my energies and efforts into applying to medical school. I was fortunate to get into Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, where I trained to become a doctor, met my husband of now 39 years, and he's an obstetrician. I'm a pediatrician. And he would always say, you know, tell his patients, I got a good doc for you to take care of those babies. So that was always our running joke.
Right.
So he also played collegiate athletics. He was a free safety for Vanderbilt. And interesting enough, we had the same knee injury the same year. So we always like, oh my God, how crazy is that? So after medical school and residency, we ended up in Phoenix, Arizona, where I worked for a federally funded clinic, primarily serving the African American Hispanic community. And it was wonderful because our patients needed us. They needed to see us. There was a certain level of trust. And I felt like I was, serving as a role model for all the youth I was seeing to let them know they too can be a physician. And during the visits with patients, I would just not address health issues. We talked about education. We talked about school. What are your plans? Do you plan on going to college? Do you need tutoring? Do you need help? So it was more of a holistic approach, not just centered on, okay, you got an ear infection, you got a cough, that kind of thing.
What was it like growing up in Oakland for you? Because if you go back a while, you touched on something that was very unique. You was the first African American lady of color to go to
Yes.
Stanford and
Yes.
compete. Now that's clear here. To compete on a on a divisional scale, what was that like for you?
You know what? At the time, when I first of all, when I started gymnastics in 1972, I was telling you about that moment when I witnessed Olga Corbett on television doing her thing. And
Right.
I said, I have to do this. When I got in the sport, I never, out of all the years I did it, I never saw another Black gymnast ever.
Right.
So if you look at the news now or pay attention to sports, we have a plethora
Right.
of African American women representing. And I'm telling you, it brings me so much joy
Mm-hmm.
to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but during that time, yes, there was racism within the sport. I remember my parents were going to Arizona for a competition. And you know, by the end of the meet, you know where you've placed. You've done the calculations. Everyone has done the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing the calculation. I had come in second. It was regionals. But right before the meet ended, they had an emergency judges meeting. And after this meeting, I came in fifth.
Holy crap.
I mean,
What do you think changed? Because that we do that in bodybuilding, but only the head judge calls that. And you know something's
right.
about to happen with the placement. What do you think happened at that time?
You know what? It just felt wrong. And because you know how you perform,
Right.
and the audience knows how you performed.
Right.
And it just was not right. My parents were like, my dad especially was like, oh, I'm gonna go down there. I'm like, don't, Dad. Let's not rock the boat, and we'll just continue. But that's one of the hard things about a subjective sport like ice skating, like gymnastics. It's not like my sons. You put the ball in the hoop, you
Right.
score.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a difference in that regard.
What did you take from that? Did you ever find out why you went from a second to a fifth? I mean, because that's crazy. You don't, from second to fifth is crazy. I mean,
Right.
did you and your parents talk about it when you got in the car? Because I know you didn't want to, or did your coach come and tell you? Was your coach Black?
No, there were no Black. I was it.
Okay.
And it like I said, and even back, just to digress, nowadays you're hearing our gymnasts, African American gymnasts, doing floor exercise routine to Black music.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the day, I was like, Mom, I wanted to use some Earth, Wind, and Fire. I wanted to use some Temptation. She was like, honey, you cannot rock the boat. You already different.
Right. Right.
But it's, so it was a different time,
Yeah.
and I did not want to jeopardize anything else because I was the only one. So I just kind of went along with things.
What was it like in your household, your mom, your dad, your siblings? What was it like growing up where you grew up?
Yeah, so like I said, I grew up in Oakland, and interesting enough, my mother went to high school with Huey P. Newton. So I grew up
Your
with
mother
this.
went to school with Huey Newton?
Yes.
Get out of here.
Right, exactly. So she was a part of that
That
Black
movement.
yes.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up as a child, going to some of the rallies and stuff. And I remember my mom, all of us got afros at the same time. And, going to these meetings. So I remember that as a young child.
It had to be, man, you're touching me because I can see the movie. I know the
Yeah.
story. And it's funny that kids today can't really resonate
Right.
to that period of time. And especially for you being
Yes.
an African American going to such a prestigious school that really never embrace culture,
Right.
diversity. You know what I mean?
Right.
That had to be, now that you sit back and look at it, it had to be a clear milestone for you to be the one. You know what I mean? It's almost like the chosen.
Well, once I got to Stanford, I found that it was a close-knit Black community.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. We had organizations on campus, obviously the BSU, we had the Stanford Black Pre-Medical Organization, the Stanford Black Pre-Law Organization, the Stanford Black Engineering Society. So it was all these organizations that were put into place to help you succeed, whether it was for medical, having, what should I say, mock interviews for medical school, MCAT exam preparation, someone to help you choose your classes, old exams on file. Everything was in place to help you succeed, which was tremendous.
Now,
And
who
when
did this? Was it the faculty, or did the students themselves saw the disarray and a need for change and decided to take this among themselves? And how involved was faculty in making sure that these things were in place once they were there?
Oh yes, it was a combination of faculty and students
Okay.
putting these things in place. My mentor, Dr. Woodrow Myers, played a huge role in me,
I know Woodrow Myers.
yes, yes, I
Yeah.
just saw him 2 days ago.
Okay.
We had a summit. The Stanford National Black Alumni had a summit in New Orleans, and I just saw him 2 days ago. But he was instrumental in me becoming a physician.
Okay.
I can't thank him enough. I mean, from mock interviewing to just giving you words of wisdom, where to apply, all of that.
When you left Stanford,
Yes.
when did you, what made you go? You mentioned that you took your skills and you went into the hospitals that were underprivileged.
Yes.
You could have easily taken that degree and went to multiple places and got the bag.
Right.
But what was it that made you decide to say, look, I'm gonna go into these communities because they need my expertise. I'm not gonna chase the bag. I'd rather make sure these individuals have role models and a reason to move forward.
Once again, it's all about impact. How can I impact my people? How can I give back to my community?
Mhm.
Okay. And studies have shown people feel comfortable around doctors that look like them.
Yeah.
So I wanted to provide a service to my people. And I knew that I wanted to give back.
Mhm.
That's what it's all about. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
have I helped somebody, and have I served as a role model to our youth? Because we have to, I'm retiring. We have to replace, we have to have more physicians,
Mhm.
in the African American community. So that has always been my mission, to
You
give
are
back.
you not to cut you off. You and your husband are both in the medical field, and you
Yes.
you touched on something that um is curious to me.
Uh-huh.
It is cool that we relate better with people that we know because we feel we have a common link.
Yes.
But you've been in the medical field quite some time, in your husband. Do you and your husband and the other medical people that you know, do you somehow feel, how can we address the issue where that particular statement would never be a problem, where we should feel, where the doctor should be able to relate to us no matter what our ethnic group is?
Yeah, that's a big topic right now, is how do we deal with healthcare disparities? Because
Right.
a lot of people have unconscious biases. Like, I don't know if you've seen the studies with especially African American women who are pregnant, who may be having pain. They don't see our pain as being the same as others, so less likely to receive pain medication because they think, oh yeah, you're African American, you can tolerate that. So
Really?
oh yes, so there's a lot of unconscious bias that's going on out there, and we need to educate all physicians, everyone, about what's going on.
I can't
So
believe that somebody in medical school would say, okay, she is a woman of color, she Hispanic, she's Latino. Oh, but you know what? Because of their heritage, they
yes,
can deal with this. I mean, is that something that
and
how does that even format? How does that even format to a doctor?
that's a good question. It's unconscious bias. I don't think they're doing it consciously, but it's unconscious bias. And we have to address it. And, it's
How do we address it? How do we address it?
well, you know what? Interesting. My husband's sitting on a committee with his company, and he's leading that. How do we deal with healthcare disparities? How do we deal with unconscious bias?
Right.
So when you see somebody and they make a statement such that it's biased, you got to call them out. You can't just say, and let it slide.
Right. Let's do something different here for a minute. I'm kind of relating a little bit of my experience as a father of a young girl and what it was like for me dealing with that in the medical field and making sure she had proper care. And I get it. Certain doctors wasn't able to relate to, her care, her treatment.
Right.
They
Right.
almost isolated it, just like you said. And I got kind of pissed about it because I saw it and I would ask them, how did you come up with these decisions? What were they based on? But
Right.
even more important, during the COVID, when a lot of the kids were dealing with depression, I
Yes.
noticed that a lot of doctors were not equipped to
Right.
deal with such an issue. How do you guys deal with that now? Because you said you had to stay home and during that COVID, it was a life-changing moment for you as well.
Right. So I know during COVID, I've had friends who are physicians.
Mhm.
One physician in particular from New York, who had to go to the ER. Now he's a doc 3 times because he said he was suffering, but they sent him home with medication. They kept sending him home. Now this is an ER doctor.
Oh,
He's in the medical field.
right.
And so you can imagine what the situation was like for, just a lay person coming in.
Right.
They really have to advocate, say, look, no, I'm not feeling well. No, I'm not feeling well. And on the third time, he was admitted. So there's obviously something going on that's just not right
Mhm.
that we need to continue to address.
What happened to you during COVID? You did some remarkable things during the besides protecting you and your family, you actually went clearly to the right. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. So during COVID, I decided to start writing books. Okay. I figured I had this time, and my goal as a physician, I see patients one-on-one. But
Okay.
now I said, this is a chance for me to impact the masses,
Okay.
right? And I can educate people and still be in the business of helping people.
Mhm.
So my first book I wrote was KISS. That's Keep It Short and Simple for a Healthy, Sustainable Lifestyle.
Okay. What was the second book? You wrote
This,
3 books.
yeah. So the second book, The Sugar Seduction. And then my most recent book that came out this past December 2023 is called The Sugar Attack. It's actually the first book of a series of books I'm going to write for children. They're comic books. Okay. We're going to address health, wellness, nutrition, fitness, all of the above, like in a very fun, graphic way
Mhm.
that's short. So to try to capture their attention, the goals with these books is to hopefully help mitigate some of the chronic diseases we see as adults, your heart disease, your diabetes, and your high blood pressure, that type of thing.
Let's go back to KISS. I like that. I like it, period. Keep it simple. Love it. I
Right.
say that all the time. My professor, my English professor, shouts out Mark Love, Dr. Love. He always says this in English class, keep it simple, stupid. So people, I would say it constantly, but they said, Dre, drop the word stupid, but you've taken it to a whole nother level, KISS. What were you seeing that was not keep it simple going on in your life or that you were seeing around you that led you to clearly write in this particular journal on nutrition?
Oh, absolutely. People would always ask me, well, Trina, how do you work out every day? That's such a drudgery. It'll be on their to-do list. Then after the end of the day, it get pushed to the next day.
Mhm.
And I tell them, I said, you got to keep it short and simple to fit your lifestyle. How I started when I was in medical school, I said, how am I going to continue to work out being in medical school, which is such a time demand. And so what we did the first year, I got a stationary bike, put it in my house, and for 20 minutes before class, I would ride my bike before going to school. And we walked to school. I had a car, but we walked. So it was a 3-mile round trip. So did that. Once I had kids, there was another barrier, twins. How am I going to work out? Well, this is a funny story. I'm telling you, when they were little, I would put that same stationary bike next to my bed. I would breastfeed one child. I had my breast milk in the bottle. He was on the bed in a carrier, and I rode my bike while I fed the kids. I know it sounds strange. When they got older, became more mobile, I converted my living room into their playroom. I put a wrought iron fence around that area, jungle gym. Then I put my office around this area. So that way there was no excuse. So I had to be intentional about fitting it in. And that's what I tell people. My prescription I give people, my personal prescription is 10 minutes 3 times a day or 15 minutes twice a day. The American Council of Exercise tells us we need 150 minutes of moderately physical activity per week. So then you break that down to 30 minutes 5 days a week. Well, I broke it down even further because when things are in small chunks that are digestible, it's easy for people to wrap their mind around 10 minutes 3 times a day or 15 minutes twice a day. And I said, if you can be consistent with that, that's what's important. But our problem is oftentimes we are consistently inconsistent. So I'm just trying to get those people who don't work out, who are struggling, to help jumpstart. And because once you get started and you start seeing results, and I tell people, you may not see outward results, external results right away, but internally, there's a lot of change, good change going on.
But Trina, we're gonna. I feel you. I'm a trainer, professional athlete. I deal with the same challenges that you dealt with for over 30 some odd years. Getting people to change and telling them it takes one step. You need to do this. But people will look at individuals like myself and you and go, oh, this is what I used to hear. Oh, that's easy for you guys. Because you guys, I wasn't always an athlete.
Right.
I had to prepare to become an athlete. I had to prepare to become great. It didn't happen overnight. It was one step at a time. But with that said, the number one major stumbling block to get that I found, and you may feel the same way that I had with people, wasn't really getting them to walk. They was able to do that. The most difficult part of that journey was what they were taking in their mouth, not understanding you are what you eat. What's your take on that?
Oh, 100%. Nutrition is huge. So my presentation I gave at the summit was about the power of your diet. Okay. Using food as medicine. Okay. And I coined it pharmacy, FARMACY, not the regular pharmacy, right? So that's what we discussed, because food has a purpose. And I tell people, 80% of the time you should eat to live. Okay. And why are you eating something? What purpose is it serving? So we delved into that, but nutrition is huge. And I think if once people understand the purpose, okay, why do I eat blueberries every day? Blueberries help with blood pressure and blood sugar. Okay. So every food, pineapple has a particular ingredient called bromelain that helps with joints and arthritis. And I have that, after tumbling on hard surfaces in the Flintstone era. So so I try to tell people this is good for this. This is why you do this. Why do you do green tea? Okay. Why do you do turmeric and ginger? Well, they're anti-aging, anti-cognitive decline, anti-arthritis. So food serves a purpose. And that's what I try to, educate people about.
Why do you think there is such a disconnect? And me and you talked about this off camera. When I first wrote my nutrition manual in 1990, I was definitely way ahead of time. I was probably one of the first to actually take carbohydrates and started to put them in a whole different category,
Right.
to realize there was not just a starchy carb in this carb, there was also a fibrous carb that was
Yes.
left out of the food index, and trying to really go deeper into understanding its link with insulin and insulin
Right.
resistance, because we had a high fluctuation about the around the 80s, no, around the 90s, of insulin resistance with
Right.
individuals.
Yes.
Your book, KISS, keep it simple, keeping it simple. What were some of the things that was really, really a must need address moving towards? Because everything you're doing is to prevent long term.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked about, um, the importance of fiber and
Mhm.
how in America, we are woefully have an inadequate intake of fiber. So we
Right,
talked about fiber. We compared simple carbs to complex carbs, like you talked about
right.
earlier. We talked about healthy and unhealthy fats. We talked about, the saturated fat found in your meats and your cold cuts and your baked goods. Then we talked about the unsaturated fat with the omega-3 fatty acids, with the monounsaturated acids. So I'm trying to educate people, what's a good fat, what's a bad fat, and how they can incorporate that into their diet in a simple way.
Mhm.
And one of the simplest ways that we can incorporate these healthy foods, from my experience, is via a smoothie. Because I tell people, you're not going to eat a bowl of spinach, a bowl of kale, a bowl of pineapple, a bowl of blueberry. No, you're not. But the gift my mother gave me 20 years ago, the Vitamix, I'm able to create. I've been creating my smoothie for 20 years for my family and myself, that it contains all these, healthy ingredients in one. We're in such a busy, hectic society. People don't just have the time they did back in my grandmother's day.
Mhm.
And to digress a minute, one of the other problems I see, we as a society, when I grew up, we ate out once a week. On a Friday, our family would go out. Now
Man,
people
how much
eat out.
money did you have? Because we didn't go out at all.
Well, well, we didn't go to anything fancy. It was a local Chinese restaurant, or we went to a Mexican restaurant. They were right down the street. That was it. And that
It
was
is
on a
so funny,
Friday.
Trina, that you said that, because now I'm going back, when I was in school in the
Uh-huh.
70s and 80s, and in Georgia. And it's funny, I had never ever went to a McDonald's. I didn't know nothing about a McDonald's. Like you said,
Exactly.
we had a place called Arctic Bear, and it was
Okay.
like a, hamburger joint, and you went there and you literally got an ice cream and thing. But it's funny, the generation, now that you talked about it, we did not go out. We literally
No.
ate at home. We didn't go to the store and buy a whole bunch of candy and stuff. That was not how.
No.
What happened? Tell from you, what happened? Why hasn't what changed?
Fast food industry. We're living in a fast-paced society. And for example, I remember seeing parents pick their kids up in the school line, go through the fast food line, take them to, basketball, football, whatever, and then after practice, go back through the fast food line for dinner.
Convenience.
And that's insane. And you got to realize, we live in a capitalistic society. These people are not concerned. Restaurants are not concerned about your health. If they had a choice between using lard and extra virgin olive oil, they're going to use the lard. And I had a perfect example. I had a patient right before COVID. They were from, I think they're from Japan. And the dad showed me pictures of the children. They were lean, they were in shape. They'd been over here a year. They had gained 30 pounds. They were unathletic. I'm like, you need to stop eating the American way and go back to what you were doing, because this is obviously detrimental. So it's the fast food industry. I know one of the ex FDA presidents. He did this dumpster study. What he was doing was, he found out what he exercised all the time, but he wasn't losing weight. He's like, what is the problem? So he went in the dumpsters of all these fast food or, chain restaurants because they wouldn't answer his questions up front. And he looked in there and found all this food that was laden with fat, salt, and sugar, causing us to be addicted, causing us coming back for more, and creating to this problem of weight gain and obesity in our society. So it was just interesting, hearing his story. And once he stopped eating at these restaurants, then he started seeing results.
The
So
system would be like, it appears to me that this is what I've heard. The cliche is the system is designed to keep you sick because sick individuals make money for the hospitals and the world in general. The sicker you are, the more money you're gonna have to pay to in the end.
It's so you eat at these restaurants and you get these issues, then you have to go get medicines, and sometimes they tell you it's for life. You can't get off, but that's not the case. You can change, and a lot of diseases can be reversed, okay, or at least shorten or decrease the amount of pharmaceutical medications that is required.
What are two of you're a doctor, and we're still focusing on the KISS part before we do the other two books. But what are at least two of the illnesses that can be changed through simple changing your diet? Because we know that one of the two diseases that have, where once upon a time it was considered just a minority disease illness, which was high blood pressure, but now we have high blood pressure, we have sleeping disorders, we have erectile dysfunction, we have mental illnesses, we have tons of things. But what are at least two of the things that if the individual would just take the time to change, could have a major effect on them coming off of their medications?
Right. I think the two would be hypertension and diabetes. With as far as changing your diet, we know that changing your diet can reverse or even at least decrease the amount of pharmaceutical medications you're on. And like I said, we know that beets are great for blood pressure. We know blueberries are great for blood pressure. When my son, he's played a little bit with the LA Lakers, they utilize Beet Elite. And not only does it help with blood pressure, but it also helps with energy and athletic performance. So yes, if you were to get with a nutritionalist and sit down and change your diet to more of a plant-based diet, I don't necessarily, even though I'm totally plant-based, I think the Mediterranean diet is what is the ticket, because it's the most researched diet there is that incorporates fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, omega-rich fish like salmon, like tuna, mackerel, rainbow trout. So I think that's the best diet. And because all those fruits and vegetables and whole grains, they have all these phytochemicals that can help fight disease. I often tell people it's like an army analogy. So your body is an army, right? And it has billions and billions of cells. Those cells are soldiers in your army trying to defend you from disease. But you just can't give it any old ammunition.
Right.
You got to give it the right ammunition. And that ammunition is stuff from our ground, from Mother Nature. Like I said, the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds. That's where it comes from.
Let's go to your second book.
Yes.
Sugar Seduction. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Just talk about Sugar Seduction and what brought that on.
Interesting story. So my husband, who was helping me as I read the book to him, he was like, I'm addicted to sugar. What he would do, he would go to Trader Joe's and get these little it's a pretty significant animal tub of cookies. Well, I didn't see them.
Oh, I've seen those before.
Yeah, yep. And he would hide those in the laundry room because I'm short to a place I didn't really see them. But one day I had to climb up there and get some. I'm like, what are these cookies doing up in here, right? So he did not realize he was addicted to those cookies. And he was up, I think his weight was up to at least 250. And he was like, I need to do something. I used to be an athlete. This is not
It's
happening.
unacceptable. Yeah.
So, exactly. So he read the book, he implemented the changes, and I'm proud to say he's down to 220, and he's kept it off for the past 2 to 3 years.
What was
So
some of the things in that you say that he start recognizing that the carbohydrates or the fructose ingredients that he was consuming was increasing his pancreas, which was releasing insulin related hormones in his body, which later stored into triglycerides in his body.
Right.
But people deal with this every day and don't recognize that they have this problem. So you wrote the book. What was two more of the main things that made this book come to light outside of your husband?
Right. Just family members as well. Family members who just call, and friends who would call and say, Trina, I need help.
Okay.
How can I get rid of this sugar addiction? And one thing I did was I looked at like 30 restaurants, like your Olive Garden, your Cheesecake Factories, and I showed people the top 5 worst, meals you can have there and the top 5 best meals you can have there. Because let's face it, people are going to go out to eat, but at least they should know what to avoid. I mean, there were certain.
I agree with that.
Exactly. So I said, at the Cheesecake Factory, do not eat X, Y, and Z. I mean, there were some meals that were like almost 90 grams of sugar. Now, the average female should get no more than 24 grams and male 36 grams. Okay. And that one meal had 90. So you've had enough sugar for a whole week. So
how does the impact of you're the doctor, but how does the impact of that amount of sugar, what's this impact to male and female and children as it affects the pancreas in its liver, in this insulin production?
Well, the problem is when you are consuming that much sugar and the sugar is simple sugar, you have these blood sugar spikes, right? And then your pancreas is just on overdrive, working, trying to release the insulin, trying to, get that sugar out of your blood. And guess what? After a while, it's going to poop out. Okay.
Which means you're going to have complete insulin shutdown, which means you're going to be on Humalog or some type of insulin medication. Am I correct?
Right. And it's going to poop out, and it impacts your liver. It can impact your heart. We know it impacts your teeth. It lowers your resistance, your immunity for your immune system. So there's a lot of things that happens, and people just don't know. And what you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
And so that was the goal, is to say, look, at least start with the restaurants, because we, as Americans, we eat out a lot. And if I can just show you how much sugar is in, that's in these restaurants, and show you what not to eat and what to eat, then hopefully that could, provide some benefit to your family and friends.
You know what's so funny, Trina? Before we go, I know we're gonna focus on your last book, but this is so funny. We're still talking about that COVID and all the different things that you did with this book. But this is what I found was so funny during COVID. I looked out my window and it faces Keystone at the Crossing. So I'm looking out my window. Now remember, the only people that's supposed to be out during COVID is what they call them, essential workers.
Yes, essential workers, correct.
Yeah. But help me understand, I never will forget this. It was raining. It was a Friday. The PF chain had a line of people. It was raining in their car, getting food. And I'm sitting there thinking, because what do we have to do during COVID? We can't go nowhere. So I'm sitting there asking myself, the first thing I did was made sure I went to the store. We had so much multi-grain products in our house. We had cans of tuna, we had rice, we had fresh oranges, I had tons of lemons and limes. we have the essentials, what I call essentials, eggs and so
Yes.
forth. But I'm thinking, like what you said, the system is so effed up that
Yes.
they allowed restaurants to stay open and serve people food, which, like you said, more processed food going into these systems. You're a doctor. Wouldn't you think that people would have been more prone to stay in the house and make healthy meals versus going out and getting food delivered to them and so forth?
Well, that's what we did. And in fact, we also started a garden. So we had
Okay.
kale, butter lettuce, we had tomatoes.
Mhm.
So that was a perfect opportunity to start a garden because you're there,
Right.
right? And like I said, right, when we had the grocery service, but we ate at home.
Mhm.
We did not go in a line to get processed foods. And I think, this whole thing about COVID raised the question of food insecurity.
Right.
That was huge. And I think, especially in our communities, we have a lot of food deserts. So we really need to rethink how we're going to deal with this. I mean, I've been having this discussion with people before, but we need to utilize our traditional institutions, our churches, boys and girls clubs, YMCAs. Why can't we go to the local community college, university, have their agricultural department speak at the churches, the boys and girls club, tell them how to start a garden, because it's not far-fetched that this can happen again, but
Right.
you need to know how to harvest your own food. And I think, that could be a possible solution.
The third book,
Yes.
the future. Let's call it what it is. The
Yes.
future. And
Yes.
I appreciate you taking time to come on the show and tell us about your beautiful journey. But one thing I do like about what you said when we talked off camera, you said, Andre, it's about the future. And you clearly recognized it by by creating a beautiful children's book. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. One of my classmates from Stanford, who enjoyed the sugar seduction, said, Trina, why don't you write a book for our children? And I'm like, that's a great idea. And I didn't want to just write a book just with text. I wanted some graphic, cartoon-like pictures to depict what I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to show kids the harmful effects of sugar. What does it look like? And I wanted to, once again, keep it short and simple with great graphics. So that's why I wrote The Sugar Seduction. It's the first of a series of books that I want to address. The next one will be about salt. Then we'll talk about good versus, bad fats. So kids to have an understanding. And my whole goal is if they can learn or have some inkling about health, wellness, nutrition, and fitness at a young age, then hopefully that can help mitigate some of the chronic diseases we see in adulthood, like your diabetes, your high blood pressure, and heart disease.
You're talking to a former school teacher, myself, kindergarten through eighth.
Uh-huh.
And I taught history and physical education for many years. And you're right. How do we get the school systems across this world to recognize the need to put more focus on nutrition into the physical education department? Because my job was not to embellish or to teach nutrition. However, I saw low income kids who had to depend on the school lunches, who
Yes.
couldn't go home, and the school lunches were not the most nutritionally sound. They were nutritionally sound based on budget.
Yes.
But
Oh,
you,
I know we're short for time, but I just want to share this. So right before COVID, I always ask a diet history from my patients.
Mhm.
I would say 85% of them, I said, what do they serve you at school here in Vegas? A cinnamon roll.
Yeah,
And I said, what do they serve you for lunch? The overwhelming answer was cheese pizza.
yeah,
And to me, that's unacceptable. Now, when I went to visit my son in Finland, I went to an elementary school. They had oatmeal and a side of fruit.
right.
I said, what's wrong with that picture? And I said, there has to be someone overlooking, what we're feeding our kids. But you mentioned getting in the school system. My elementary school, I sent them my book. Now they're using my book
Okay, great.
to educate the students. And the students get a kick out. They say, oh, she went here that many years ago. So yeah, so it's about, once again, it's about giving back. And like I said, I sent books to my high school, to like my elementary school, to my church. So people can become aware of, like I said, the harmful effects of sugar. And like I said, what people don't know, they don't know. And like I called out certain, fast food restaurants that kids frequently visit. Just looking at the soda, if we can just get rid of the sugary drinks, that would be a huge step in the right direction.
But I also think it has to deal with the parents, because
Yes.
my daughter had never asked to go to McDonald's. I remember her first time going to McDonald's, she was a junior.
Yes.
And she got sick. And
right.
now when she goes, well, she grew up in a household where, her dad's not going to eat that kind of stuff. But,
Right.
she goes, if she does go, she makes healthy choices. I'm not saying she can't,
Yes.
that you can't go to McDonald's. It goes back to what you said. She goes to McDonald's and she'll get a salad. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Exactly.
I made sure that things like candy and cookies and that stuff was not a part of the infrastructure in my home.
Right.
There were fruits, grains, vegetables,
Yeah.
plenty of salmon, plenty of
Yeah.
green beans, rice. I didn't want her to be exposed to that type of style. But I see a lot of parents, as I was raising my daughter, like you said, would just let their kids just eat anything. And I even took it upon myself to make sure I packed her lunch, because
Oh,
I knew what the school was going to serve.
Every day packed a lunch. One last quick story. My sons were elementary school and they went to a birthday party, went to a restaurant. And my friend called me back. She goes, your kids were expensive. They ordered salmon. And, and all the other kids ordered, chicken fingers and pizza. We got to crack up out of that. So, yeah.
How can the viewers get a hold of you for guest appearances? You, your husband, and definitely your two sons. We got to have on the show. They have a beautiful story. Hopefully, they'll come on the show and share. But how can the viewers reach out to you and get a copy of your books?
Absolutely. So my website is simple. It's my name, www.Trina, Trina Wiggins, Wiggins.com. My email is also on that site. My Instagram is at Trina.r.WigginsMD. And we'll be more than happy. My husband as well. We've done podcasts together, and I'm sure my sons will be more than happy to do it as well.
Before we leave, you definitely got that beast mindset. I appreciate you taking the time to come on and share such a beautiful and remarkable story. Congratulations for being the first African woman of color to attend a major university in the sport of gymnastics. I know that had to be a learning experience now that you look back on it, and understanding the things that you did, but you paved the way for the next generation. Leave the viewers with something that only you can leave them with.
Yes, I think is one thing is a quote. It seems impossible until it's done. And that was by Nelson Mandela. And that resonates with me because when we're going through things or trying to achieve things, doubt enters. You're like, but it will be done. And like I said, just remember, it seems impossible until it's done.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the one, the only, Oakland's own, San Francisco's own, California's own, Dr. Trina, on the Andre the Beast Crayton show.